Hey folks, Bram here with something a little different. This is Farming Simulator 22. I haven't recorded a whole lot of stuff on the channel, which just kind of started as a way to record some of the battles from my clan and another game, but I mostly play like naval games, strategy games, military, war games of one sort or another, you know, blowing stuff up. Every once in a while, I like to take a break from that, little palate cleanser, and do something that maybe is a little bit more wholesome. And I'll do like a city builder game for a while, like Skylines or some train game, Transport Fever, something like that. And lately, this Farming Simulator's been around for a long time, and I have not been a dedicated aficionado of the franchise. I played a little Farming Simulator 15 several years ago. Not since. I didn't play 17 or 19, and but this came up. I think it was released maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I guess. And I remember that I had enjoyed Farm Sim 15 on the PlayStation a while back. I thought I'd give it a go, and yeah, it's a good time. I don't know if it's very compelling, video gameplay. It's essentially various forms, one way or another, of mowing the grass. But it's soothing, relaxing, and it's pretty, it gets pretty complicated. But, I just thought I'd kind of put together a little video. I'm not making this in particular, necessarily a Let's Play or series or anything. I just thought I'd make a little video of what I was doing. And so what I'm doing here is I've been playing on this save for a little while, not too long. I think this is November. This is probably maybe the 3rd year of the playthrough. So I've expanded some. And I've got a number of fields that are individually, they're not very big, but all together they're a pretty good plot of land. And I've planted barley on all of it, which barley gets planted pretty late in the year. I just planted it in October, and then it kind of grows on all the way through the winter and spring, and it'll be harvested early next summer. And kind of the last step is here the month after planting. I'm applying the second stage of fertilizer. And so I got my little sprayer on my tractor and just about finished. This is the last field I needed to fertilize. I'm using liquid fertilizer. There are liquid and solid versions. And I'm going with liquid for no other reason than I just like the liquid sprayer. I think it's fun, and that's about all there is to it. I don't have any rational decision. Solid fertilizer, I think, depending on how you get it, might be a little cheaper. And the solid fertilizer spreader, puts out a similarly big swath. I'm just doing it this way because, I don't really have a reason. It's just how I'm doing it. But I think the way this thing unfolds itself and then maneuvering it all around, I just enjoyed this one. Now, the first time you spray, it's usually just after planting, and the ground is still bare. It's just raw earth, and there might be a fair amount of overlap there. I'm going to squeeze back over a little bit this way. And you can clearly see the ground where it's wet from the fertilizer and when it's not. Once the foliage starts to grow, though, which is the case for the second application, if I could see the ground underneath, and if the lining were right, that's you might still be able to tell the difference in the dirt, but you don't see a difference in the foliage. So this map view of the stage of fertilization is a little, yeah, I can move over a little bit more. I'm going to have a lot of overlap there. That's probably about right. Want to make sure everything's covered, but don't want too much overlap because fertilizer is pretty expensive, whether solid or liquid. I'm playing on the Elmcreek map, which is kind of like, you know, the first map, the newbie map, if you will. This is not a mod, nor is it even one of the later of the in-game maps. And this is intended to be a United States or potentially Canada, you know. So, well, I think the default farmhouse does have a U.S. flag on the porch. But it's, you know, indeterminate. It could be Indiana, it could be Minnesota, Kansas, whatever. But then there's a French map. I think it's French. Haute Bailiron. If I didn't butcher that pronunciation too badly. And then there's an Alpine map, which I presume would probably be Switzerland, but could also be maybe someplace like Bavaria. And then there's some mod maps that have already been released as well. Anyone who's watching this is probably well aware. This game is all about the mods. You know, all different kinds of vehicles, different gameplay features, different maps. And I don't usually play with a whole lot of mods in most games. And I don't have too many in this one. But I got a few. We'll head back to the farm here in a minute when I'm done fertilizing. This should be the last pass. You know, I'm not like a veteran farm sim player throughout the entire franchise, as I mentioned before. So, you know, I'm kind of on the easier settings. I got, you know, I got like easy economy and stuff like rocks and weeds and lime. You know, I've got most of that stuff turned off. But now that I've gotten a little bit more familiar with it, I think maybe once I get through this next crop cycle, and you know, so maybe sometime around next year, I think I'm going to start turning some of that on. Just double check and make, yep, we're all covered. So on the Elmcreek map, and I did the newbie start too, where you start with some gear. Not a whole lot of money, though, in that start. So, yeah, you have stuff, but you're kind of locked into what you start with. There's also they call it the farm manager mode, where you start with a lot more money, about $1.5 million, I think. But you don't have any stuff. You don't have any land. You don't have any, not even a vehicle. So it's really kind of same. It's just, you know, with the farm manager start, you actually kind of get to pick your equipment at the start, and that $1.5 million won't go very far. It's, you know, the stuff you start with on this mode is probably, the value of it's probably in the same ballpark. You know, the land, the various tractors you get, the combine. So at least in terms of your starting conditions, it's just one comes with equipment and one comes with a bunch of money that you then have to buy equipment with. And the But this is the, let me scroll out, this is kind of the whole map. And this is the default first map situation, or map overlay, showing all this stuff. This is the Elmcreek, presumably USA somewhere. Got the interstate rolling right through the middle of it. And various fields of various sizes. None of which are huge. The biggest fields on this map, I think 70 is probably the biggest. And then there's a few others that are very close in size to that. And they might be 20 acres. There's other maps which have much larger fields on them, especially modded maps. There's a beautiful English, Southern England map called Calmsden, which it's a gorgeous map. Whoever put that together, I think his name is, well, I don't remember it, and I don't want to butcher it, but that person did a magnificent job. That map is beautiful. And I'm not playing it because, at least not yet, because the fields on that thing are just enormous. But on this map, if you play the new farmer start, you start, here's your little farmhouse here, and you start with 3 little bitty fields. And I have expanded somewhat, and I've got kind of most of this block. This light brown here, this is all barley. These are all fields which are now mine, and that's what I planted in all of them. And then this one little bitty field here, number 44, you get to a point where you need kind of admin space, parking space, a place to put all your stuff and buildings, and so that's just kind of paved over now. That's the barn, that's the farmyard now, as it were. It's not a field anymore, even though technically it still is. And if I could go into build mode and put that field back together, but it's so, I think it was less than half an acre, so it got to the point where the space was more valuable than the field itself. In farmland mode, yeah, basically if it's this light blue, this it started where it was just right up here, 44, 45, 46. That's what you start with. And then I've gradually expanded out, get a crop in, make some money, whatever, and buy another field at a time. And so I'm up to this now. And it doesn't have to be contiguous. I could have splotched a field anywhere I wanted, anywhere on the map. This is what I did. And my kind of plans for the future are, kind of finish out this parcel here. I'll probably buy 53, 54, 55, and then, I don't know, going to 71 next. I like that idea. Or come over here and get these, maybe. Or right across not the highway, but kind of the main road in town. There's some pretty nice fields just right over across the road. Or maybe eventually all of them, I don't know. But that's a map view. It's kind of abstract. Let's head back over here, head to the farm, and see what she looks like in game. And I'm right at a point where a full load of fertilizer is just about what it takes to do my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 fields. So I started full and I'm now empty. So before I go pack away the sprayer, I'll head over here and fill up for next time. Right over here, I've got my liquid fertilizer storage tank that I spent some money, and I didn't completely fill it up because it holds a ton, but I've got enough to I think I've got about 40,000 liters of fertilizer in there. So I've got the actual sprayer on the front that holds 1,200 liters, and then I've got this additional storage tank on the back of the tractor, which holds another 1,500. So it's a total 2,700 liter bag, which is several $1,000s worth of liquid fertilizer. And what I've also got right next to it, I also have a solid fertilizer tank because I'm using the liquid fertilizer for the second application of fertilizer on all my fields. And most of the time up till now, I use that for both applications. I was just using nothing but liquid fertilizer. However, then I got a planter. Not a planter, a seeder. There's a difference. Seeder does most crops, but a specialized planter is used for other crops. So I got a seeder that, when I upgraded, this particular seeder happened to also fertilize as it seeds, which saves a trip around the field. Okay, but it only uses solid fertilizer, not liquid. So when I started using that, I found myself in the business of, well, I guess I'm using solid and liquid fertilizer now. Solid for the first pass and liquid for the second. And that was a learning process. Like if I were to do another playthrough, which, maybe I will at some point, I'd probably just start with the solid. That, knowing now what, knowing what I know now, I'd probably just go with solid all the way through, knowing that later my desired seeder, when I got to it, would be using the solid fertilizer. I don't know if I actually have anything in. Yeah, I got a little bit, but this is my seed storage. You buy seeds a number of different ways from the shop. It comes in pallets. It comes in these big bags. And it's not difficult per se, but you kind of get in the situation where you've just got like partially full bags and pallets of seeds laying around all over the place, and so I've still got this one bag of seed left over from that, and finally I just decided to do this tank just to kind of keep the place a little more tidy rather than for any cost reason. It's actually probably a little more expensive to buy seeds this way, but it just seemed to be less screwing around with a forklift moving seed pallets and bags, or just having them littering the yard. This is a mod. This is not in the base game. This is called the Multi-Fruit Buying Station. And I mean, it's a genuine mod. It's approved. It's tested and everything. And so, but it's kind of a cheat. You can literally buy anything in the game for a lot less than via any other method. Including crops and products that you actually wouldn't be able to buy anywhere in the game. You have to grow it. Like, for example, canola, cotton. Actually, I'm not sure you can buy cotton. because it does have to be something that can come through this feed pipe here. In any case, it's kind of a semi-cheat, and the reason I put it on here is because I started doing chickens, which I knew you needed to feed grain to chickens. I was not prepared for the ridiculous amounts of grain that they eat. And so even though I can use this thing for just about anything, including, you know, I don't actually need all this stuff over here. Liquid and solid fertilizer, seeds, herbicide. You can buy all that crap right out of this one tank for what I'm sure are probably by far the cheapest prices available in the game at all. I mean, this is like a real easy mode mod here. So I've got it. Thus far, though, I have been disciplined enough. I only use it to buy some wheat to feed the chickens. Thus far, I haven't broken down and given in to temptation to buy my fertilizer here and seeds and everything. Doesn't mean I won't, but I haven't so far. Anyone who's familiar with the game and plays it and has played Elmcreek is aware that this open spot kind of in here where I've got these tanks and where I've got these couple of trailers parked, you start with a barn here. It's a big, nice looking, picturesque red barn that has kind of a basement area, a storage area in the back of it, or below it with an entrance in the back. And I had that on the farm for quite a while. It looks nice, but it's just not very useful. You know, you can park a vehicle in it, but the storage, there's a lot of cubic volume in it that is a real pain in the butt to kind of actually do anything with. You know, the tractors, even the small tractors, won't actually fit into the bottom, or at least if there's one that does. I never found it. You know, Forklift can go down there, but anyway, I just got to a point where I, again, kind of like I mentioned before with that other field, the space was more desirable to me than the barn was, even as cool as it looked. So I sold it. The game lets you sell that particular building, so that I'd have room for these tanks, these silos. And also I started needing more space to store vehicles or implements, and so I've got a couple trailers here now too. And part of that's just, you know, why do I need so much space? Well, because, you know, I don't like doing a lot of Y-turns and backing up and messing with trailers, and I'm not good at all that stuff. I just like to kind of drive up, park, and drive away all in forward. So most of my farm stuff is just kind of in a row there where I can just park it and keep driving straight ahead. Right over in this corner is where I keep various little implements, weight, implements for my front loader arms, which come in useful from time to time. That shelf there, that's a mod. That doesn't come in the base game. I think I'm demonstrating pretty clearly I'm not the best WASD driver on the planet in these kinds of games. This is kind of the maintenance area over here. I got my gas tank. I got my vehicle workshop. And I got my power washer. And these things don't really save you money. They don't cost more, other than the fact that, you know, they cost some money to buy and put down. But it just saves trips to the vehicle shop and the gas station and so forth. It's right here on the farm. It's really no big deal to run over and get your maintenance done at the auto shop. And it doesn't cost any more. But it does save you the trip. And while the actual vehicle is no big deal, you've also got all these various implements, the seeders, the cultivators, the trailers, blah, 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 etc., so forth. And they all need periodic maintenance too. So I was kind of in a good habit of keeping my tractors repaired. But I noticed I wasn't doing as good a job of keeping all that other stuff up to snuff. So just having it all right here in the barnyard and dragging the cultivator or whatever and just topping it off for maintenance right after a job. Anyway, I have found it worth doing. That's kind of a little windmill, a little wind generator. I just saw it in the shop or the build menu, and it produces just a couple $100 a month in revenue just from power. Now I don't know if that's meant to reflect actually selling power to the grid, or maybe it's just making a little bit of my own power, so maybe I'm just simply drawing less on my electric bill. Anyway, it's really kind of negligible. I was just kind of experimenting. Whether it's worth actually putting on your farm, I don't know. And it's sitting right there under a tree, because at the time, this was all different. The field was still here and everything, and I didn't have a whole lot of room, so I stuck it over there in those trees. This all opened out a little bit later. Would I place it again? Probably not. I saw no reason to tear it down, though. I've got 4 small greenhouses here. They are all producing strawberries. And it's kind of, you know, they're not very expensive. They're like $3,000 a piece, and you just plop them down, and all you have to do is just put water in them, and they start spewing out strawberries or lettuce or tomatoes. Of the 3, the strawberries probably makes the most money, although they're all 3 pretty good. The strawberries, however, are kind of more prolific. They produce a lot of pallets. This is not quite a year's worth of strawberries, and that is 28 pallets. No, it's double that. That's actually 56 pallets, 28 stacks of 2 pallets each. And I've still got another couple months to go until January. January being the month in which the strawberries are the most money. So in another couple months, I will load all those up. That's why I have that big ass trailer over there, the Crone trailer in the distance. I got that so that I'd have something that could actually haul all this crap. I still might have to make 2 trips. And I'll probably get another at least 6, maybe 8 pallets by then. And it's a lot. That's a lot of pallet truck or forklift work to load that darn thing up. And that's kind of a hidden little, you know, there is no free lunch, right? You know, the greenhouses are inexpensive. There's no work involved with them per se. You just kind of have to keep them filled up with water, which is very quick to do. And you know, this this water trailer, which I have kind of parked over there next to the creek, that white tank trailer. You can just drag that to a lake and fill it up for free. And it really, it's very little work on the greenhouses themselves. But then, they punch out all these pallets, and that's a lot of work, to deal with all those with the forklift. I have them stacked here because I just kind of assumed that this red and black marked area is where where they appear, their output. They're clear right now because already this morning, I moved today's production of strawberries over here. And I'd been doing that because I assumed that once this little output area was full, that it would clog and the greenhouse wouldn't produce anymore. And so I had been working to keep these clear so that they'd keep producing. And I have since recently learned that no, the greenhouse keeps producing. There's room for 4 pallets here. Once these 4 visible pallets have filled the area, though, it won't keep putting out pallets, but it still has internal storage. It's just you pick up a pallet, go move it, or load it in the truck, and then another one will appear in its place. So I wasn't losing production. I wasn't avoiding losing production by doing that, which means I probably did more work than I needed to. That said, when I load them into the truck, I want to double stack them, and I would have had to do that anyway. So it may have been a little extra work I didn't need to do, but double stacking all these pallets, I would have eventually needed to do that anyway. This is a Cedar Mulcher, a type of cultivator. That is a disc harrow, which is a particular type. This is the roller. I was using this for pallets. When I saw all those darn strawberries that were stacking up, that would have been like 4 trips with this thing. That's when I went and got that big guy over there. And this is my crop trailer. And this is a pretty big one. 37,000 liters. And
I haven't even opened it yet.
Sorry about that. And but the reason I have such a big one at this point, which I haven't often needed, but it was occasionally things come up on sale, and this thing was like 60% off, and so I went ahead and picked that up. That's my baler. There's the combine there. Which you can do most crops with this. There's a few you cannot, or at least that you need a specialized header for. But you can do wheat and barley and canola. I think there's at least 6, maybe. There's 6 crops you can do with this starting out, and then there's some additional headers that it will support that will allow you to do a couple more. This green thing over here, this is the default header that it comes with at the start of the game. When you buy your equipment, you do have to buy this separately. But in this game start, it comes with it. So with this header, there's like 6 crops you can do. Wheat, barley, sorghum, oats, soybeans, I think, canola. And then there are specialized headers for corn and sunflowers, which you can put on that combine, but it is a separate piece of equipment. And then there's some other crops like sugar beets and potatoes that need a completely different machine. I don't have those. So you start with this thing. It gets used once a year for harvest, and it's a pretty big chunk of change. And so a lot of people on this start will actually go ahead and sell this combine at the beginning and get a pretty good amount of money, and they don't need it again for a year or whatever. And then when it does come time to come harvest, they just lease one for the harvest and then get rid of it. So that's another way you can do that. I chose to keep mine. You don't really need passenger vehicles in this game. You do start with a pickup truck. I did sell that, and I went for a long time without it. I mean, the tractors are fine for whatever you need to do, wherever you need to go. Other than they are faster, but the map isn't enormous, so being able to go 60 miles or 70 miles an hour is not important. But this just actually came out today, I think, maybe yesterday. But this just came out. It's a mod, and it's basically, you know, like a Lincoln Continental. I just couldn't resist. I had to go buy it. Black, of course. I did that like maybe 5 or 10 minutes before I started recording this video. And you do start with a farmhouse, and the significance of the farmhouse is this is where you advance a day. This little icon's where you go to sleep, and then it just, you know, fast forwards to the next day. That's really the only purpose it has, other than just being a decoration. But this is not what you start with. This is a mod too. There's a mod that has a few little different farmhouses, and this one's actually smaller than the starter farmhouse. But I just like the look of it better, so I just swapped it out. Got my dog house, got to have the dog. You come over here and feed him. And one thing that I find inexplicable is you can't name the dog in game. Ringo is what Giants named him, and I can't change it. I even went into the build menu and changed the name of the doghouse, thinking that would do it. No, he's Ringo. Well, he's not. This is Roscoe. My dog's name is Roscoe. But I can't do anything in game to make him show that name. You can pet the guy. He rolls around the ground like an idiot. Somewhere around here. Well, there it is. There's his ball. I can pick it up if I use the correct button. Hey, Roscoe, here. Catch the ball. We'll go fetch his ball and bring it back to you. Usually he kind of hangs around the farm, but you can also kind of tell him, Roscoe. But you can tell him to, you know, come with you, and he'll follow you all over the map. And then when you're tired of him, okay, go home. Usually he like wanders around out here in the middle of the road. He's not very smart. He's a good dog though. So like I was saying, I got these 8 fields now. I've got them all in barley for now. So there's kind of, I got basically 4 retinas, getting the old Continental here. I haven't actually taken it around for a drive yet, other than when I drove it home from the shop. So basically there's 4 different revenue streams, as we in the farm sim business call it. Already talked a little bit about the strawberries over here. This is obviously not a farm vehicle. That I saw the mod on a video this morning. I just couldn't resist it. So we got strawberries. That's one revenue stream out of the greenhouses. After this cycle, when I sell all those darn strawberries, I might switch to lettuce. which will be a little bit less money every year, but there won't be nearly as many darn pallets to mess with. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I might. But that's one of this farm's revenue streams, is the old strawberries. And of course the fields are producing barley. Oh, they're producing barley now. I had been doing oats simply because it had the shortest from plant to harvest time. And for the first couple of years, I was playing with the crop calendar off. But kind of like I mentioned before, I started kind of on easy mode, and I'm so I decided I would gradually start adding more features in. And I started playing with the crop calendar. And so when you do that, basically every crop has got one time a year that you can plant and one time a year that you can harvest. At that point, the length of time it takes for them to grow is kind of irrelevant. Like oats grows much faster from plant to harvest than canola does. It's twice as fast. But you're only doing one harvest a year regardless. One plant a year. So I didn't really have a reason to do oats anymore. I still need to do one of the basic grains. Because I had been before, but at this point I'm not directly selling it. And I'll get to that a little bit later. And the only reason I picked barley specifically, let's just take a look at this crop calendar here. Yeah, so for every crop, you've got a green, this is your plant window, this is your harvest window. And oats is real quick. So I planted in March, I harvested in July. But I can't plant, so there's all this dead time. I can't plant again until March anyway. So the fact that it grows fast didn't matter. And in the meantime, I bought, these two fields are the most recent acquisitions, and I bought field 50. And when I bought it, it had a crop of sunflowers growing in it. So that was kind of like buying a field, with all the planting and cultivating, and I think I did have to put one last touch of fertilizer on it. But other than that, it was just like, okay, here's some free money. But I had to wait for the sunflowers to finish, to get harvested, so that I could plant this at the same time as all the other fields. So, oops, that's not what I meant to do. And sunflowers are harvested in October. Oh, here. Well, same month, but which meant I could not plant until after I harvested those things. And basically at that point my two choices were wheat or barley. And I just chose barley. It could have been wheat. Either way. Well, why I came over here is this is revenue stream number 2. And this is my chicken coop. And I think I mentioned earlier that I got that multi-fruit station because I kind of ran out of a way to feed them. They eat wheat, barley, or I think sorghum. And this coop, this is the big one. I got the big one. But this little feed silo holds 9,000 liters. All of which I knew beforehand. What I did not know was how fast 360 chickens would go through 9,000 liters. I kind of thought they'd be good for a year. I think it lasted more like 3 or 4 months. And they ran out and they all got sick. Animals don't die in this game. It's all ESRB, G-rated. Nothing bad happens here. You can't run over people. None of the animals die. So they didn't die, but when they get to 0 health, they're still here. They're still clucking, but they don't produce any eggs. And then same thing for cows and milk and sheep and wool and all that. So anyway, they quaffed down a lot of grain, but eggs are a buttload of money. November is the month for selling eggs. And so this game morning, I mean, I actually did it yesterday, but I finally took all the eggs, and even with a stretch where they didn't produce any because I had messed up their food, even with that, I mean, I made $70,000 in all the darn eggs that they produced. And now that I've kind of got the food figured out, there'll probably be more like 90 or 100,000 next year. So, as long as you keep them fed, that's a pretty good revenue stream. Pretty happy with that. And then revenue stream, so far it's been just kind of a sidelight rather than an actual plan. But the grains, the basic grains, wheat, sorghum, barley, and no, I don't think sorghum does. Wheat, barley, and oats, when you harvest them, you get the actual grain, but then there's also a byproduct of straw that you go around and then you collect that after the harvest, and straw is used for bedding and you fill up the cow barns with it, and maybe the sheep barns too, I'm not sure. It's not a lot of money per unit, like $100 per 1,000 liters. So it's a low cost item, but it's very, very high volume. You get about 10 times as much straw as you do grain when you harvest, roughly. It's probably a little different harvest to harvest and yields and so forth, but even though they're not much money, added up, the straw is a pretty significant proportion of your harvest. Probably about 35-40% of the total money value is in the straw, not the grain. So, I've planted stuff that also has the straw byproduct, and I've got that stacked here. The month to sell straw is December and January, and so these will be sold here next month or the month after that. But another thing like that, bales, it doesn't have to be bales, you can do it in bulk too. But you can cut grass, and when you cut grass, there's a couple things you can do with it. You can use a particular implement and dry it a little bit, and that produces hay. And that's these two bales over here. If they're green, that's a hay bale. Or you can produce something called silage, S-I-L-A-G-E, which is a form of animal feed. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can just stack up all your grass. There's a wagon you can use for that, and you put it in this big silo, and you can have just tons and tons and tons of it, and you cover it with a big tarp. Or you can bale the grass and wrap it, which is what these are. And either way, that produces this silage stuff, which is kind of similar to straw in that the unit cost, the amount of money you get for an individual amount of silage, isn't terribly high, but there's a ton of it. And so it's actually a pretty good money maker, because the equipment for mowing grass at least the basic equipment, isn't very expensive. There's grass kind of all over the place. There's a lot of the fields on the map that have grass that people will pay you to come mow. And you can you can get a whole bunch of grass and turn it into a whole bunch of silage. And it's pretty good money. And what these are, I've just got a few bales here, and that's because they're from contracts. Every time you do a contract, you get paid a set amount, but then there's also, when you do the contract, it's like harvest or bale X field, and when that's complete, then they pay you. And part of the job is to take the product to a particular selling point. And so you got to deliver out of this field X thousand liters of product. Usually there's some left over, and it's almost like you're getting a cut of the harvest as well as the direct money fee. And so I did a few grass mowing jobs, and after I delivered all the grass to the sell point, this is what was left over that I got to keep for myself. And so I'm just kind of stowing this grass and silage here because it's not yet the month to sell that, which will be January. So that's kind of a byproduct of having done some contracts. But the next field or two that I buy, which will probably be, maybe these over here, I intend to plant grass and just keep mowing grass in that area and produce a lot more silage that way. And that'll be revenue stream number 3. And then revenue stream number 4, really the main one, I should have, revenue stream number 1, so what it really ought to be, is what's coming out of the field. What is this barley going to get turned into? At first, I was just, harvesting and then taking it to the train station and sending it off to just sell the grain directly. I'm not doing that now. Up in the north part of the map, there is a grain mill, which initially, when you first start playing, is just one of the places where you can sell the grain. But you can buy this thing, and at that point, you're not selling grain there. Pardon my terrible WASD key driving there. Actually, when you're driving along on the road, it's pretty much easier to go in this mode. So I bought that grain mill, which was like $96,000. So I'm not selling grain there anymore. I'm sticking it in there, and it's turning the grain into flour. So this here is part of the Bramco agricultural empire, the grain mill. I didn't get around to. Still says H&H on the door there. I haven't gotten around to repainting it, which you can't. But so basically, you come in here and you offload all your grain here, and it converts it into flour. You can do it with wheat, with sorghum, with oats, and with barley. And then this here is where it outputs it all. Everything's clear now because, like some of these other things I mentioned, I only just now cleared all the darn flour out of here. First time I used that big trailer. And took the flour to the bakery. So I think we're... Yeah, so we're empty right now. The mill is dormant because it has already finished milling all of the oats I did last year. So nothing's going to happen here until next year when that barley goes in here. This is the forklift that I parked over here. I bought several forklifts at all my various pallet management stations because they're not very fast. I didn't want to drive one all over the map, and so I just got a cheap forklift and bought several of them. So this is the mill forklift. There are in-game forklifts. There's a couple. This particular one is a mod. And what's kind of unusual about this particular forklift is that you can actually spread these forks out so that you can do two side-by-side pallets like so. That was kind of the point of this mod. There's me. There's my farmer guy. It was November, so I thought it was appropriate for him to be in a coat and have a little cap on there. And that's unique to this particular modded forklift. That's not why I got it, though. I got it because this forklift is also cheaper than the other forklifts that are actually, came base game. I haven't actually used the side-by-side. It was more cost. Go back in the old black beast here, the Connie. So where does the flour go? Well, the flour goes to the bakery, which is our next stop. Got this little covered bridge here. Cars and most tractors will go through it. But oops, I hit something there. Probably hit the side of the covered bridge. But big rigs, and maybe the largest tractors will not go through that. And you gotta go through the little creek next to it, which I had to do with the big trailer hauling all that flour. I do have traffic turned on, so there's, AI cars all over the road, and they're pretty stupid. If you're directly in their path, they will stop and honk at you. But at an intersection, until you're actually in their path, they don't see you. And they just barrel on through the intersection. It's pretty annoying. Kind of here on the main drag. This is here's the bakery. It's a small town. I can just park here in the road. Nobody will mind too much. And the bakery is a relatively recent acquisition, and so so far. And this all came out of the oats from this year's harvest. So far, I've only got 6 pallets of bread. However, if you look down in the lower right corner, there's still almost 32,000 liters of flour that they have yet to work through. So this bakery is going to be churning out bread for the coming year, and probably won't be finished until the barley's done, and I've got more barley flour coming next year. And while it's not, it's just a few pallets here, but bread is a lot of money. I think each one of these pallets, well, let's just see. Okay, so here's one pallet of bread. It is 1,000 liters, so I got 6,000 liters of bread here. And bread, and we're not even quite to the right, it won't top out till next month. But even now, nope, I'm in the wrong, there we go. Where's bread? It's here somewhere. There we go. Bread. That is $5,000 per pallet right now. And next month it's going to be a little bit higher. This window, hit space for show price fluctuations. So we're here in November, so this is 5,000, and it's going to be, the peak is next month, so it's going to be a little bit more. And one thing, what it does not show, and this is true for any crop or any product, and you see these peaks and valleys in the price fluctuations, but there's no legend or index on the sign that tells you, okay, so I know it's more money next month. Is it $20 more, or is it $200 more? Is it $5,000? I don't know. It may not even be worth waiting till next month. But in any case, that kind of shows, bread is kind of one of the higher end, toward the end of the, oh, there's my chainsaw. One of the higher end products. So I've got $30,000 sitting right here, and a whole lot of more flour getting turned into bread inside the building. So this is the main income stream, which is just now really coming online. But yeah, there's my chainsaw. You can cut down trees. Logging essentially is in this game. There's quite a few, and different maps have kind of different levels of different amounts of trees, and there's some here. Some parts of the map are pretty well wooded, and you can kind of buy areas with a lot of trees on them, and there's a whole panoply of equipment involved with managing logs and wood chips and so forth. You don't actually have to farm at all in this game. You can be a logger, or you can be a rancher. There's cows and horses and sheep. So I haven't gotten into logging per se. However, there's a few spots on, I'm blocking this guy in. There's a few spots kind of around the edges of the field where I wanted to kind of clear it out a little bit to make it easier to work the fields with the combine. So I kind of cleared some of my own land for convenience sake rather than making money. And that's why I got the chainsaw. What else we got here? I bought that field that had the sunflowers in it, and right around the same time I had made a good bit of money, so I was buying other stuff, and I think I made a mistake, because I also came over here and when I bought the grain mill, I also bought this thing. This is the oil mill. So this is part of the Bramco agricultural empire as well, and frankly I'm not really sure why I did this. I knew I had some sunflowers coming up, I figured it would be better to convert it into sunflower oil and sell that instead of just the raw sunflower. Which, I mean, it's basically the equivalent of the flour to bread thing. But I don't really have any plans to grow a lot of sunflowers. Or it also processes canola. I don't have a plan for doing a lot of sunflowers and canola, so I didn't really think that through. I don't need this thing. I've got it right now because I did just harvest that bunch of sunflowers, so it's running right now. There's 12,000 liters of sunflowers in there, and we're up to. So far, it's produced 654 liters of sunflower oil, which is not yet enough for a pallet, which I guess is probably 1,000 liters. Therefore, oh no, there is a pallet here. Okay, yeah. So a pallet is 1,000 liters, and we're 654 toward the next pallet. Anyway, once all that sunflower is processed and we're done with the cycle, and I sell this sunflower oil, I'll probably sell this mill. I don't have a long-term plan for it, and anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. And then a final, I guess you could call it a revenue. That's basically how I am making money in this game, as far as my own farm and my own property, my own buildings. And then another way to make some cash is, you only harvest once a year, and you collect all your products over the course of the year, but you only sell them. I mean, you can sell them anytime you want, but you get the best price at a particular month. Well, in between all that, you got months where you're not really making any money off your own farm. But a way that you can make some money pretty much any month you want is, and I referred to it earlier when I was talking about the silage, is you do contracts. I'm not going to be able to back this thing in here in this. Maybe I can. Oh, yeah. I can't tell where the edge of the trunk is. Yeah. Not the best field of view in this vehicle. Alright, how'd I do there? That's a passable job. The other thing you can do, though, is you can take contracts for basically tending to other people's farms. Like right now, I could get $12,000 for going and cultivating Big Mike's field 32. It's a pretty big field. It's a pretty good chunk of money. I can cultivate field 39. And then there's a couple fertilizer jobs. Now these are kind of a double-edged sword, because you have a choice of either using your own equipment to do a job, like I can just take my tractor and my cultivator and go do one of these, or you can borrow items. So for a tiny, it says right here, use your own equipment, or you can lease for a reduced reward. It's not a whole lot. So I get 11.8 thousand if I do it with my own stuff, or I do it, you know, I can do it for about 10.5 thousand if I borrow this dude's equipment. I'm still making a lot of money, and I don't have wear and tear on my own equipment. You know, as you use a tractor, its material condition degrades and you have to keep it repaired. So this is actually a pretty good deal. I usually use the equipment even if I've got the stuff myself. Not always, but usually. When it comes to fertilizing, though, or planting, seeding, you can get the equipment. Like right here, fertilizing, they'll give you a tractor, they'll give you, in this case, solid. The spreader, they give you a little weight to put on the front of the tractor, which makes it more stable to counteract the weight of the spreader. They give you all that. What they don't give you is the actual fertilizer. So part of the deal is this, you know, you provide the fertilizer, not Zoe. So there is some cost involved in that. You still make a lot of money, but it is your own fertilizer. So by the time you've paid for the fertilizer, depending on the size of the field or whatever, this may be more like $8,500 or $8,000. Or if you're doing a sowing job where you plant a field, you know, you kind of got to factor in that you're using your own seeds as well. But what you can do, you don't have to actually go do these jobs yourself. The game has a feature where you can set up AI workers to do stuff. And so what I can do is, okay, Mike, I'll take on this field 32 and I'm going to borrow your equipment. And that equipment is going to be at the shop. Cycling through all the vehicles. There we go. So this is the equipment I just borrowed. And I kind of have to set it up myself. Because, you know, AI has limitations, just like in any game, right? But now there's a tractor with the cultivator attached. And so this is enough for one of those AI guys to work with. So what I can do is I can go in this this menu. This is the AI worker menu. I click on the subject vehicle. That's it. I go create job. And there's several options. You can just tell them to go somewhere in a particular vehicle. This is kind of helpful, like if you need multiple vehicles for a particular job. This happens with harvesting. Because you need to get the combine there, and you also need to get the storage trailer there as well. Or you can do field work. And with field work, you just tell him to go to a field, kind of give him a spot to go to, make sure he's in the field so he recognizes where he's supposed to be doing the job. Kind of start him like in a likely position for starting his mowing back and forth, going back and forth. Orient him. And then start job. So he'll go to that location, then he will see he's in a field. You don't have to tell him cultivate. He just does whatever his tool is. And you see, there he goes. He's got a cultivator, so he's just going to start going back and forth and cultivating. Now there's some wages with that. So I've spent a little bit of money on borrowing the equipment. And now I'm going to spend a little bit of money on Joe Bob's wages. But after all that, I'm still going to clear $10,000 off this job without me actually having to do it myself. And the AI workers are not... Let me just see how he starts off here. Not like in many games, the AI, they can be kind of dumb. And sometimes they'll, they're turning around. The weirder shaped the field is. Well, he's kind of going off on a tangent there. I thought I had him pointed due north. Well, he'll eventually get it figured out. He'll do the bulk of the work. Now, later I may have to come back to this vehicle and kind of clean up around the edges where he missed or something like that. But, on a perfectly rectangular field, they do the job just perfect. Most of the time. If there's like a diagonal or something edge, sometimes they miss a bit. Sometimes they're trying to get the thing turned around in a kind of an awkward spot, and they actually leave the field, not just with the tractor, but with the tool. When that happens, they're no part of the kit is actually in the field anymore, and then they get confused and think they're done. So there's a little bit of babysitting involved. And it's not confined to just the contract. You can use AI workers on your own fields too. So you might be, say, harvesting in field A, and you just finished field B, and then you can take another tractor with the mulcher and tell the AI to start working on that, and have the AI worker coming behind you. I don't do a whole lot of that because I just have one tractor. So far. It's kind of a plan to get more. Anyway, so old Joe Bob here is going to cultivate this field, and later on I'll collect the money. And the final thing I want to mention here is when you first start in this mode, they actually give you 3 tractors. They're not great tractors, but I mean, they're decent. But unless you're using AI workers a lot, I just kind of was in this mode where even using AI workers periodically, most of the time, like 2 out of my 3 tractors were just sitting here on the farm. And earlier on in the playthrough, I didn't have a lot of money. So I decided that the thing to do was to sell all 3 of those and use the proceeds to buy 1 tractor that could kind of do everything I needed it to do, at least for the early stages of the game. And what I settled on was this guy. The game gives you 3 medium tractors. This is actually a small tractor. And this is the class. And it is the highest end of the in-game small tractor line. I mean, there's a lot more modded ones and stuff, but as I was looking at various tractors, yeah, this is the guy right here. So the base model is 145 horsepower, but you can upgrade this engine through several steps. And actually, what you can wind up with is, for 150K, get a little bit over 200 horsepower. And because it's a small tractor, it's got a really nice turning circle. 200 horsepower is plenty enough to do pretty much everything that I was doing at the time and up till now. It's still a great tractor. It's got not all tractors have this, but this one you can put has the capability to mount the front loader, so you can put on. You have to buy the arms and the actual tool separately, but you can mount that stuff like your pallet fork, baling fork, bag carrier, log something or other, log grabber, and it's just kind of a nice utilitarian capability to have that not every tractor does. And then as far as when you start getting into some bigger tools, there's several different wheel setups. You can have the wheel weights on this one, and you can go actually to double tires. And with all this traction, even if you're pulling something that's really kind of calls for something a little bit higher than 200 horsepower, 205, this little tractor still pulls it really well with this double wheel setup, which does cost a little bit more. The bottom line, this thing just kind of had everything that I felt like I wanted in one tractor, so I sold the other three and bought this, and it's been doing fine. And even though it kind of added on the bigger engine and the front loader and kind of drove up the price a little bit, the other three tractors combined still more than paid for this. One thing about the double wheels, though, is it does kind of, at least I felt like it kind of affected the turning radius a little bit, which would make sense. So I eventually went back down to just the regular. I ran this for a while. It did fine. It was a little bit clumsy, and of course it's wider, so there were a few places that it couldn't go just because of the width of the vehicle. So I finally went back down to wide plus weights to give it more weight and traction, but without that width, and fixed up my turning radius and started turning a little tighter again after that. Anyway, I think it's a great tractor and kind of one option when first starting out on the map. And I have been blathering on for who knows how long. This video is probably well over an hour, more than I intended. But just to look at FS22, which is very different from the dreadnoughts and the naval action I've been recording. And anyway, if anyone wants to see more of this, maybe a playthrough on the French map or something, leave a comment. In any case, if you've lasted this long, thank you very much for watching.